Despite what their moms told them, they just aren't talented enough for radio. Unfortunately, anyone can have a show these days. Sean.
Well, I'm pretty hard to figure out sometimes. In fact, I can't even figure myself out sometimes, so don't you try to.
Joe.
You're an idiot and really a disloyal person.
This is the Cuse Militia. Now, those two unapologetically biased orange-blooded homers, Sean and Joe.
It's the most bullshit thing I've seen in 30 years.
Welcome, orange men and ladies. This is the Cuse Militia with Sean and Joe at Cuse Militia on the socials. Go there, join the militia. Welcome back. Welcome us back.
Yes.
Because
feels like forever every time we do an episode.
It does, and there's a reason for that, Joe.
Other than we're both super busy.
Well, we're both super busy. No one wants to hear about that, but we are happy to be back. A lot of stuff has happened since we were here that we didn't cover. That's going to seem like old news because, well, it is. But we're going to talk about it a little bit. We got a little bit of football, got a little bit of basketball, and also we're going to have Dan Hamer on from the SU Lax Pod. He is going to join us to talk to us about Syracuse Lacrosse. We'll get into the Chase Scanlon thing a little bit. This is kind of I mean, it's just one of those stories that's like, come on, man.
Oh, I mean, it's national now. Yeah, I get it. Yep.
Yeah, it's national now. Exactly. So, unfortunately, we'll have to discuss it. So, anyways, we're going to get into all of that stuff. But first, before we do that, let's talk about who we got. Takeline. Okay, sports, culture, takes. Takeline has it all. Takeline is a weekly podcast hosted by Emmy winner Jason Concepcion and former WNBA champ Reese Montgomery. That's a fast-paced exploration of the NBA and the world of sports and culture. Each week, Jason and Renee talk about games, players, controversies, and issues that run both on and off the court. Follow now to hear Takeline every Tuesday, wherever you get your pods. Takeline. Also, hey man, if you like the NBA, that's your thing, you listen to Takeline, give him a little rating, give him a little love, show him what's up. You could give him a review too, let him know you heard about it here. The Locker Room app. Portions of this show go live on the Locker Room app. We try to do this every episode now, so go there. Go to the iOS or Android store, download the app, and all you need is a simple email address. Everybody's got one of those these days. Download the app, set yourself up with a little profile, and follow us on there. Also, you don't have to just listen to us. You can also do your own thing. You want to create a room and go live with it and start talking. You got stuff to say about, it could be Q Sports, could be anything. Get on there. Make an account, start that up. You can also follow us. And that's, where a lot of our fan feedback is going to start to come from when football games come back. So that should be fun. We'll do a little bit of both. We'll do a little bit of locker room feedback, and we'll also do the traditional, social media stuff. So, anyways, and got a couple new sponsors jumping on board there. We appreciate that, and got a little bit later on. So before we get Dan on, it's been a minute since we've talked. And some more recent news is that Ed Hendricks and Tyrell Richards are going to transfer from the football team.
Yep.
Okay, that's more recent. But what we didn't cover that we shoulda, woulda, coulda did earlier would have been the draft wrap-up stuff. So we've got two guys that went within the first 7 rounds, and Cisco 65th and Melifonwu 101st. So right at the top of the 3rd round for Cisco, going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Melifonwu 101st, like I said, going to the Detroit Lions. So that's kind of a big deal for Syracuse. And the Jags didn't they just sign a new tight end too? Or they got him coming in, don't they?
Timmy T.
Tebow. I love me some Tebow, bro. The only time I rooted for Denver in my entire life was when...
He's getting killed, buddy.
Oh, he's getting killed. That's fine.
On social media. So, and also with Jacksonville, they also drafted Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne.
Yeah. So Cisco going to join the Clemson foe in Jacksonville.
Urban Meyer.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Well, that's why Tim Tebow is going there, right? So you got quite the star-studded cast over there at Jacksonville, in my opinion. It's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. But the one time I rooted for Tim Tebow, well, I've rooted for Tim Tebow. I take that back. The one time I rooted for Denver was Tim Tebow at quarterback for Denver against the Steelers. You remember that game? Mm-hmm. You remember? Okay. Yep. All right. When Tebow beat the Steelers, that was something. I enjoyed every second of that.
Definitely. I'm not going to lie to you. Jacksonville is going to be one of those younger teams, especially always interesting to see a college coach come up to the NFL and just see what they can bring to the table. And Urban Meyer has always been one of those guys where they wondered, and now he's there, and he's got a, like you said, star-studded. Everyone thought Trevor Lawrence was pretty much an NFL quarterback from the day he stepped foot in Clemson before he even started a game. So
we'll see. It's going to be interesting to watch, nonetheless.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Oh, yeah, 100%. And Melifonwu as well, going to Detroit in the third round. I'm glad that happened, too. You're talking... We haven't had positional players. I know that... what's his name from last year? Oh, God, now I'm drawing a damn blank.
Come on, bro.
Defensive...
Come on, man. Alton Robinson.
Yeah, there you go.
Seahawks.
Yeah. He was a positional player that finally, ended up in one of those higher rounds. You get to 6 and 7, and it's not a guarantee that they're going to make the team. And then we've obviously had special teams where we've had a bunch of punters and stuff like that get drafted. And, kickers are always you never know if they just draft somebody or bring somebody in just to bring in a competition. But those two getting drafted in the third round, I mean, they're going to make rosters. There's no doubt about it.
Alton Robinson he's making a name for himself in Seattle too. He did a great job last year.
He had a great year last year
made the most of his minutes. Absolutely.
Right. I think that, if you ask Seattle if they were happy with where they drafted him and what they gave him, they would probably say yes.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
That's really all you can ask for is that second contract's with the moneymaker. So it's good to see that he's kind of solidified a spot. Obviously, you got to keep working hard. But, then also, Trill Williams, kind of a surprise he didn't get drafted. A little bit, not going to lie, just because of his freakish athleticism, stuff like that, his size. I don't know. I just figured that someone would have drafted him, but I'll tell you what, got picked up by the Saints along with our punter Nolan Cooney. So looks like the Saints are definitely trying to bring in some talent there to give some competition to some of those players. Because Trill Williams is, I'm telling you, that guy's
Trill will make the roster in my opinion. Nolan Cooney, I mean, he averages like 45 yards a punt for Syracuse. I think. Was it? Yeah, for all of last year. So he's a hell of a punter.
Most teams, not going to lie, when it comes to the roster size that you get, like they're always going to bring in an extra punter just to give that person the competition. They just don't want a punter or a kicker to kind of rest on their laurels because they're the only one on the team, so to speak. So most teams do that and bring a little competition to the camp during the summer.
Right, and I don't know who the hell their punter is right now. I don't much care, but anyway, we'll see.
Hey, we'll see.
Exactly. So, okay, so Quincy, he entered the transfer portal, and he's going to test the NBA waters while he does so. And he was averaged what? He averaged 13.7 points a game and 8.5 rebounds a game, shot 49% from the field last year. Had his struggles. He really built up the bulk of those numbers in the beginning of the season. He was averaging a double-double for, quite some time. He was at the top there doing it, pulling those numbers in. So he's going to transfer. We talked before when I know all hell broke loose, and this is old news too, but this is something that we probably should have definitely done something quick on, but it comes down to a time issue. So with Guerrier, I know everybody lost their minds over this. Like this was something, we saw maybe testing the waters. Okay. But now he's going to transfer. All right. I get that. But at the end of the day, I think that Guerrier leaving is not going to be a huge loss. I think this Syracuse team is going to be able to pick up next year. And and just roll with what they got. Now, with that said, we did talk earlier in the year, Joe, some of the body language about with Quincy and the team. I mean, this is we said it, so it's out there.
We did, but it might not even be that. I think if it was that big of a deal, then he probably would have said something a little bit sooner. I mean, I think it could be
fair enough.
I mean, that could be true. Two things could be true at once, but at the same time, you remember back in the day, Tyler Lydon.
Yeah.
He's going to test the waters, right? Then he came back, and he didn't really have the greatest. Yeah, he had his moments, and we made that run. But I think there was I remember talking, I believe, about him kind of maybe doing some things and trying to show the prospects some of the things that they probably gave him negative.
They gave him advice on what he needs to work on.
Yeah, and he went back and worked on it.
Right.
And I think that there was times where we thought that hurt the team. Now, did they end up making a run and going to the Final Four?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the other point.
And my thing is that as a coach or anybody, if you have a player that's like, oh, I'm going to go sniff the waters, and as a coach, you're like, hey, look.
Oh, now we're sniffing them.
You're probably not there, right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's one of those things where if you're trying to test the waters, you're starting to sniff that green.
Oh, yeah.
You know
when you come back.
You get that allure of that money, And like I said, I don't blame the kids, but that's one of those things where if you have somebody who's like, you're probably not ready, but I'm going to go test it. And there's one of those things where, once you go and you do workouts and you do this and you do that, then you're going to get all this feedback, and all that negative feedback is going to go. And that's what that player's going to work on. When sometimes necessarily on a college team, a coach has got to coach his players and put his team together as like a scheme. So he needs certain players to do certain things. And if you're out there trying to prove something else that's not your role defined to you by your coach, then that's where you sometimes see, it not work. So this is probably a mutual thing. And obviously with Jimmy Boeheim coming back, I mean, I don't know if it was a situation where Coach Boeheim gave Quincy a timeline or whatever. Maybe Quincy saw that Jimmy Jr. signed on, and he was like, well, I might as well just say I'm going to transfer if I am going to come back. But if he does come back, and I think somebody on Noons or somebody wrote about it, I mean, if he does come back, he's probably going to end up getting signed by a team where he, either is lied to about what his role is going to be, or he can go to a team where he can actually play, show the NBA the negative feedback that he got from them. So it could be a win-win. You never really know. You never know how that's going to affect it. Once you sniff the green, you start doubting whether or not that player's coming back for the team or for himself. Just to get a better
Joe. I mean, let's be honest. I'm not trying to make any accusations about anybody's. I'm not trying to cast aspersions here, but on Quincy's character or anybody else. But when they go do that, and they're like, someone at the NBA is like, hey, you should work on this, and this. We'll see you next year. You're going to get some higher stock. You work on that stuff, you're going to be good to go. That's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a team effort. No, I know. Well, hold on, because I have a point. And I think that, I'm speculating, but sometimes Griffin played like that last year. And maybe it was in his...
Or seemed like.
Oh, that's what I said. It seemed like he played like that. To me, I felt like he played like that last year. Now, I know he didn't test the NBA waters at all or anything like that, but a talented kid probably had Griffin.
What do you mean? He's going to the NBA.
No, he didn't test him before he transferred to Syracuse.
Oh, yeah.
So he didn't have, a list of to-dos to work on, but it kind of felt that way. We've seen it before, like you said, but at the end of the day, we all wish Gary luck, whether he comes back, whether he goes. I don't think he's going. I didn't think he was good enough. I do think it's good to test the waters and see.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's where I'm coming from, right? It's okay to test the waters and see, but then once you do that, that might not make you a great fit for the team that you just came from, right? So,
right.
I mean, my whole
look at Brissett. He was the last one to do this, right?
Brissett's balling right now.
He is killing it right now, but he was not killing it his last year at Syracuse. He was a good player, but
he was a good player, but you could,
he was raw though. He was
He was, but him leaving to Quincy right now, I think was apples to oranges. I think Brissett was better. He was more
would agree with
prepared.
that. Yeah.
His body was bigger. He was a bigger guy overall. But really, I mean, again, like I said, I was looking at it through with an orange prism. As a fan, as a coach, how do you want your team? How do you want to see your team? Yeah, as a name and as a talent, as we've seen in Quincy, it's like, oh yeah, we want to get him back. But if he's going to come back and it's not really going to be good for the team in the way that the coaches want the team to, play out, then, that's where you're going to have a difference of opinion. So I'm not faulting him for doing this, and I wish only the best for him. He's got every right in his to do what he wants for himself.
Yep.
So go do you, Quincy.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that said, I still think that we've got a solid team, 8-9 player.
We're still going to get killed until we prove it. We're going to get killed every time. That's the worst part about it is we lose Kadari and we lose Quincy. So now anytime, probably leading up to the season, but then anytime anything goes bad throughout the season, there's going to be those guys like, oh, should have had Quincy.
Oh, well, Kadari would be doing great. Well, yeah.
Exactly.
If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. I mean, it would be great to have.
That's what it's going to be, though, man.
It would be great to have both of them back. Yeah. So when we step on the court next year, and it's going to take a little bit of time to get things rolling, just like it does every year. It did this year too, by the way. And with those guys, it's going to be that, and we know that. But that's fine. I mean, that comes with the territory. That comes with, first of all, the freedom of being a fan and being able to shout your opinion on every social media site possible and every group in every comment section. And that's fine. But at the end of the day, at the end of the year, next year, I think we're going to see a cohesive group. I do. I really feel like we will. So you're worried. You're a little bit worried about Samir Torrance. Not really sure what he can do. And I kind of understand that myself. But obviously, there's going to be some development going on.
Oh, I think this is
between
going to be
Samir and Swider, right? Because I mean, Jimmy B played it. You got Joe Buddy, Sidibe's in there, Edwards, and then possibly Frank, right?
Yeah, and I think they all want to be there for the team, right? I mean, that's really where
they do.
You have a situation where you have Buddy and Samir and Joe, who all played AAU, and you're going to have Jimmy Boeheim, who's going to come in and he's going to want to do, he's going to listen to the coach.
It's a confidence thing too. Samir played with.
Brahma's going to listen to the coach. Jesse's going to. They all know they're going to have a role. They're going to be able to mold this team, and hopefully we have a 5-star Benny Williams that comes in and kind of puts it all together. I think everyone else that's there that transferred in, I think they want to be there. I think they're going to buy in whatever roles and stuff like that the coaches want them to do. I think it's going to be an easier, a more coachable team to be able to kind of mold them into what the coaching staff kind of sees. So I do see certain lineups where maybe there's a athleticism problem in certain situations in certain lineups. So again, with Samir Torrance, it's more or less just I haven't seen it with my own eyes. He really didn't show it in Marquette, but he also said Marquette really didn't let him play the role that he can play. So if Coach Boeheim can let him come in and play the role that he played and that he's seen him play in the AAU tournaments when he went and watched his son, then I think all will be well. But only time will tell.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we want to talk a little bit of Syracuse Lacrosse heading into the tournament. But first, let's hear from the title sponsor for the Cuse Militia and for Sports Drink, and that is BetOnline. You guys know this. You know all of this. This week has tons of action. MLB, NBA, NHL, they're all in full swing. Get the latest news, odds, and info for all your sporting needs, including UFC and MMA action. Before the next pitch, head over to BetOnline on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sports news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as a team's prep for their run for the playoffs. BetOnline. Go over there. Sign up today. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Now this is something that was rumored around the sports drink water coolers, and I'm just so happy to welcome aboard to the Cuse Nation and Sports Drink Kansas City Steaks. Look, there's no better sponsor than food, right? Maybe Manscaped, but food works. You work hard, play hard, treat yourself. Stock up for the summer with barbecues and Kansas City steak companies. Visit kansascitysteaks.com and get 10% off your order and free shipping with the code SD at checkout. From classic steak cuts to USDA Prime to American-style Kobe, hard-to-find specialty cuts and more, Kansas City Steaks has everything you need to fire up the grill. They make it easy. Each order from Kansas City Steaks is flash frozen and delivered directly to your home. Satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. Imagine relaxing in the backyard with family while enjoying steakhouse quality meals from Kansas City Steaks. Try their butter tender filet mignon, Kansas City Steaks juicy steak burgers, all beef jumbo hot dogs, and even complete meal combos. Bring home steakhouse to your house this summer with Kansas City Steaks. Go to kansascitysteaks.com and get 10% off your order and free shipping with the promo code SD at checkout. That's kansascitysteaks.com. Code SD, kansascitysteaks.com, code SD. All right, joining us now, welcome, everybody, Dan Hamer, host of Syracuse Lacrosse Podcast. That's at SU Lax Pod on Twitter, wherever you find your podcast. You can download him at Apple and everywhere else, right, Dan? How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me on the show. Yep, you can get it anywhere you get your podcast. If it's not available on your platform, let me know and I'll get it there.
Awesome. So, you're like the only Syracuse sports podcast, right? That's doing lacrosse solely. So
yeah, yep.
Okay.
So.
Where you from? We got to ask everybody new that comes on here. That's from Syracuse. Where'd you go to high school?
I actually went to Jordan Elbridge, so just about 20 minutes outside of Syracuse. So
okay. Everybody knows, but Joe and I are both ESMers.
Okay. That's fair.
Four years apart, but. We had the orange and blue. That's the thing I'm most proud of about being at ESM was our colors were orange and blue too. I always love that. So there is a chance, Dan, that we set our expectations just a little high for Syracuse Lacrosse this year since they finished first before the pandemic hit, or they were first before the pandemic hit. They did have a good win over UVA. They were up by 6 in the first game of the season and just ended up getting smoked. And they ended up finishing 7-5, 2-4 in the ACC. Mike McAllister over at SI Sports Illustrated reminds us that Syracuse hasn't been to a Final Four since 2013, adding that's the longest absence since 1980. So Syracuse sets it up for this, facing Georgetown in the first round on Saturday, May 15th, 7:30. That's going to be on ESPNU. We're going to talk about that second. But first, obviously, let's clear the room with the whole Chase Scanlon thing. He was arrested in charge of criminal mischief on Friday, suspended from all athletic participation. He's accused of physical altercation with a female by breaking her phone. And according to Syracuse.com and via the district attorney, says the physical altercation didn't result in any legally defined injuries, so the charge was harassment, basically akin to a traffic ticket, and that's all the result of him breaking her phone. So more news comes out. The Daily Orange had something. They got a hold of the I guess some stuff from the actual police department or whatever. And it allegedly, all of this is alleged, right? But if true, man, this guy's got issues. So at one point he was restated. Player boycott prevented him from practicing with the team. So that speaks volumes. I think we all knew right then that this was serious and we didn't have any of the details yet. So is Syracuse going to be motivated enough to pull off big wins without a guy who scored 24 goals and 33 points before he was even suspended?
To be honest, I think you're going to see a more focused team than you ever saw. I mean, look, the arrest finally happened. Let's be honest. All the reports that I heard for weeks were saying he was going to get arrested, and that was from my back channel of people that I talked to that are close to the program. They said the arrest is coming, the arrest is coming, the arrest is coming, and finally we hear about it. So now you don't have to hear about Scanlon anymore. In my opinion, they shouldn't talk about it in the game at all against Georgetown. But you see a guy like Siebold who moves down to his natural position of attack, and he's just going to make a big difference for this team.
Well, I mean, that's good news. Absolutely. Yeah. And you're right. It does take the focus off now that this is obviously kind of cleared the air. We know what's going on now as far as the future of him at Syracuse, and a history.
So that whole thing said a lot, right, Sean? I mean, there's not too many times where a team steps up like that. And
you knew
him
it
back on the field. Like, we're just going to walk off.
You knew it was bad.
I don't even know like what his reputation is with his teammates. If there's toxicity in the locker room. So I mean, to his point, like maybe they're just a more focused, better team without him. I mean, sure, talented kid, but if he's causing other issues around the program, then it could be a positive.
So I was afraid that the allegations were going to be something to do with some kind of violence against a woman or something racist. And according to her, it's a little bit of both, unfortunately. So, like, it's really disappointing. You never want this kind of toxicity on your team, right? So the air is clear. And hopefully, like you said, there's no damn way, by the way, Dan, that they're not going to mention this during the game, because those people cannot help themselves, right?
I mean, they tried to mention it every other chance they get whenever Syracuse is on offense. So I know what you're saying. I just hope that they don't, I guess is the way that I would say it. I hope they focus on the guys on the field. Let them do their thing. They've heard about it for a while, so let them just do their thing. Exactly.
And I love your optimism. I don't know. So, but that's going to be an exciting game, and we want to get your thoughts on Georgetown. But you got an ACC heavy tournament. It looks pretty damn good, right? For the ACC. So I'll give you. You guys disappointed me on social media, by the way, trying to get some buy, sell, or holds for this. I understand that it's not like football or basketball, but guys, come on. I mean, you made us all look silly out there.
So we're still a lacrosse school. It's a tournament, man.
Yeah. So here's mine, Dan. I want you to go ahead first, okay? Buy, sell, or hold. And you got one too. So you no holds. No holds. We don't have enough for holds. That's the rule. So buy or sell. I'm sorry, man, but come on. We will have an all ACC Final Four.
I am actually going to sell that. Okay.
I
think we're going to see, I don't know the right way to say it, but the ACC eats itself alive. It seems to do that every year. These guys, you got the guys that this league is tremendous. Everybody knows that. They're eating each other alive all year. You see these goalies like Drake Porter, look human, who actually is a really good goaltender for Syracuse.
Got smoked a couple times.
But we saw what Syracuse did against a team like UVA. Look, if UVA goes up against Bryan and plays the games that they have against Syracuse, they're losing in the first round. So I'd sell. I won't tell. I will tell you that Carolina will be one of the four. That's probably my guaranteed one.
That's what I was going to ask you, because I don't watch all these teams, and looking up at that bracket, because I was looking ahead, obviously, just in case Syracuse, right? And I was going to ask you, does Monmouth or Lehigh or Rutgers have what it takes to beat North Carolina? From what I've seen from North Carolina, it's going to take a lot to beat them.
This is like March Madness in May. Obviously, it's mayhem, as we call it in the lacrosse world. So, yes, it can happen. Will it? Probably not. The Rutgers is probably the best chance because they played Maryland really close all year. So that's probably the best team that has faced the most competition.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Notre Dame was impressive too. Now, I didn't watch Notre Dame.
Yeah, but they're up there with Maryland.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they got underseeded though, in my opinion. That's a whole gripe with the tournament though. So,
yeah, you think so? You think Notre Dame should have been what? Maybe did they do that to keep them out of that top bracket up there with North Carolina, Syracuse, and Virginia, or what?
I think the logistics play into it. So you've got South Bend as a host for the next round. So however the tournament, I don't understand tournament committees. I never will. But I think they gave a thought to Notre Dame hosting their next game, to be honest. I don't like that. Because look, if Notre Dame's one of the best teams in the country, they've shown it all year.
Yeah.
So why are you putting them? Not saying the Georgetowns, not saying Virginia isn't good, but look, they should be up there with the 3 or the 4, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were good. Like I said, I only watched the games that we played against them, but I mean, obviously,
By the way, I am going to sell that.
I'm selling it too. I was hoping I could get some optimism out of Dan on that. I think that would be really cool. Now, do I want it to happen? Yeah, I do. But I'm honestly I'm really nervous about even Syracuse. So we got 2 in that bracket that could make it.
Well, and I was looking at Georgetown too. It's hard for me because I look at the ACC and maybe it's just this is the bias or whatever. But I looked at the ACC and I'm like, all teams made it, and they just look like a conference that's just above the rest. And just the competition. I mean, it says a lot for Syracuse making it to the tournament at 7-5 because of that competition. And I looked at Georgetown, and I mean, they got them. They got Denver. Excuse me. And I know Denver's playing Loyola down in that bottom right-hand bracket. But I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with how good that Big East really is. I don't really know. You know what I mean? Because I haven't watched Georgetown or Denver this year. And to me, I think that was the championship, right?
Yep. The people that I've talked to have said the Big East is the second best conference in lacrosse. Okay. I will tell you that. So that's the people that have watched the games. They've called the games. Obviously, the Big Ten is top-loaded a little bit with Maryland and Rutgers, but top to bottom, the Big East compares to the ACC. It's the people, obviously not the talent-wise, so let's be honest about that, but that's the second best conference.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that Denver-Loyola game is going to be interesting, boy.
Yeah.
So, as far as Syracuse Georgetown goes, Dan, let's say someone might be listening to this that's never watched Georgetown play. I mean, I can't imagine who wouldn't. But I'm just finding out Georgetown's got a lacrosse team. So, what do they got that is going to give us a fit? What is kind of your synopsis on the Syracuse Georgetown game?
So, obviously, the first thing, as you said, I got a lot of texts saying Georgetown has a lacrosse team. That was the first question I got asked. And to be honest, in past, Syracuse has dominated them. They own the series 17-5, last game being in 2013. But this isn't your average Georgetown team. As I said before, the Big East is good, and Georgetown is the best of the best in that conference for a reason. I mean, they had 2 losses. Like, let's be honest, that's a good record no matter what in college lacrosse. It's just like in basketball going undefeated. It doesn't matter who you play as long as you get a 12-2 record.
Who beat them in the Big East? Do you know?
Denver.
Oh, okay.
Denver.
All right. Well, if I had to put my money on it.
So that says something about Denver, too. But back to Georgetown, like, they're the tougher – I mean, as much as I think Notre Dame is good and is up there, Georgetown's a solid 5. Like, they're seeded for a reason. It wasn't just, let's throw them together because they're good. And, their offense is going to give Syracuse fits. We've seen what the Syracuse defense has done all year. I mean, we don't have to talk about it. I've talked about it too much at this point. So their offense is good. They've got a lot of guys that have scored. They got a guy like James Carraway who leads the team in goals with 46. That's a solid number for any lacrosse team, right? And then you've got another guy like TJ Haley, who's the quarterback of this offense, who leads them in assists with 47. Like, they're loaded top to bottom. They're first in the country in assists per game. That's a great number to have. But then you flip it to their defense. Their defense is number 1, almost, I believe, in goals per game. So that's a top to bottom offensive and defensive team. Their goalie leads the country in the save percentage. They're going to give Syracuse problems. I think people overlook Georgetown, right? Because as you guys we've talked about, they have a lacrosse team, right? We have to get past that. They're good, and this is the first Georgetown team that's legit. They could probably win it all if they get past Syracuse. They get UVA. They're an up and down. Georgetown's an up and down team. They can match with UVA. Like, obviously, we want Syracuse to win, but Georgetown is legit. I think, what's the Syracuse defense going to do? That's the big question I have. Are we going to see the Syracuse defense that can play with anybody, that can play with the Virginias, play with Duke for a half, or are we going to see the Syracuse defense that played against UNC?
Yeah.
I mean,
Does Drake Porter worry you at all? I mean, coming into the season, I thought that he was going to be a little bit better than what I've seen. And I know he's got to get help, but I'm just saying.
It's part of the defense.
Yeah, I mean, the name that people forget that didn't come back for this year, Nick Mellon. Look, he was a stud on this team. He was your anchor on defense, and you go from that to guys that have no experience. Just to be brutally honest, I hate to say it, and I hate to call them out for it. I've talked to the alums. They don't like this defense. They never have all year, because you put a guy like Kennedy, who's a Joel White type for the lacrosse people, a long stick midi who's a midfielder, and you put him down at close defense and you expect him to be your stud, and it just hasn't worked out all year.
Yeah, so you got a little bit out of position.
Yeah, I mean, there's guys. The guys are good. Don't get me wrong. They're obviously good enough to play D1 lacrosse. I'm not saying they aren't good.
Right.
They don't work for this system. They don't. They're put in positions they shouldn't be in. I'm not saying that's on the coaches. That's just guys that probably would be second or third defenders, to be honest.
So the difference between pretty much everybody came back from last year, right?
Right. And Mellon was the only one who didn't come back.
Right. And how many games did we get into last year? 4?
4.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously when Joe and I talked about, the end of the season for everything, when everything just crashed and burned last year, this was our something we were going to, we set it in stone. We're going to hang our hats on this team coming back this year. So,
yeah.
With that said, you get the Scanlon issues and some of the defensive issues and stuff like that. How do you see this game playing out? So we do this every game. We're going to give our.
Well, my question. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I guess we've had issues with obviously in the season face-offs and everything like that, and it seems like recently, unless we're playing against Notre Dame and North Carolina, it seems like we've cleaned it up a little bit. Does Georgetown pose that kind of? Because that's one of those things where face-offs can kind of change the game, for a team like Georgetown, like you said, who's got all those first and goals.
If they just always have the ball.
Right. So, I mean, is this a team that's going to come out? I mean, Notre Dame in 2 games, I think they beat us 43-21 in the face-off, and that's probably why we got killed both times. Beat pretty good. So, is Georgetown going to have that kind of guy there, or?
Their top guy wins about 50%. So, but in the game against Denver that I watched recently, that I rewatched so he didn't have any clean wins. And if you're Syracuse, that's the thing that you got to cause. You can't have a clean win from the faceoff guy. Now he's fast breaking down to the goal. I mean, that was the issue against Notre Dame. They couldn't fight for the ball. That's the easiest way to say it.
Yeah, that's what I saw. So, I mean, and I haven't watched Georgetown, so I'm just hoping that, there's that kind of light at the end of the tunnel where maybe we can go and we can dominate those face-offs like we did last time we played Virginia,
Yeah, I think we're going to see Fop get a majority of the face-offs. The thing with Desco, and I don't know how he figures this out, to be honest, because there's weeks where Varello obviously gets hot, and then we don't see Varello for a game. I will never understand that, and I can't get anybody to explain that to me, because to me, if you've got Varello giving Fop a break and Varello wins 5 in a row, how do you not play him every game? I'm just asking that question to.
I don't know. There must be some type of consistency that Desco's seen over the years, where he looks at tape and he figures out who's going to be better. And that's a great question.
We say the same thing about basketball when practice. He's obviously seen something in practice, or something's telling him that that's the best choice, right? You wouldn't not do it if it's not the right choice, and if you thought that's what was going,
Yeah, and as a fan, you're like, this guy just killed it. Now you're putting this guy in, but sometimes it works. So I'm just glad to hear that they don't have some.
What do you?
Notre Dame and North Carolina, boy.
What do you have to say? Because there's always the coach stigma when the team isn't going undefeated. I mean, they could be 12 or 13-1. It doesn't matter. If they're losing a game, someone's getting a bash, and that's usually the coach. You hear the fire Desco tweets where we're going all season, especially in the huge loss against UNC. He's been there forever, almost akin to Boeheim in some sense. But what do you have to say about the fire Desco crowd?
I can tell you that the crowd is getting louder, and that's just not from the losses. I've heard that from people during the wins. Myself, Syracuse history is different, right? Because you've got coaches that don't just get fired. They leave when they want to for lacrosse. So that's where I stand on that. Now, I've got a buy and sell on that for you guys, but we'll get to that after this.
Okay.
So, I'm not on that. However, let's say they lose this game, right? So then we have to talk years in advance because the parity in lacrosse has changed so much since he became a head coach, and I don't think people understand that enough. And I'm not giving him a break. I'm not saying, look, they shouldn't be there in the Final Four, but let's be honest. When he first came in, there was 5 or 6 teams that could compete, and that was your 5 or 6 teams that would go there every year. Now look, you've got a Georgetown that's a 5 seed. That if I told you at the beginning of the year, Georgetown would be a 5 seed. If I told you, obviously Duke and Carolina. Everybody knows that. We don't have to play that game. We all know they're that good. We knew Maryland was that good, but there's a lot of teams that probably shouldn't be there, to be honest, that are there, if that makes sense.
Are we one of them, you think?
So we were in the Final Four to be not in. I was told that through the channels that people that I talked to, and there's people that have interviewed the committee. Yes, I think we should be there. And I mean, as everybody said, those 2 Virginia wins,
right?
That's what got us in. If we didn't beat, if we didn't beat Virginia the second time, we wouldn't be in.
I
hate
can
to
see
say
that.
it that way, but
I was even worried with that. But then the Robert Morris win too. I mean.
So what happened with Army? I mean, is this just the first game of the season? Because I saw Army was ranked, and now they're not in the tournament.
So Army basically fell off after the Syracuse win. I mean, look, that's not saying Army isn't good. They just ran into a Patriot League that's better than people expected.
But you gave the heads up on that though, Dan. That's just a bad matchup for Syracuse. It's historically a bad matchup for Syracuse, and they went up 6-1 or something like that in that game, and then just ended up getting smoked.
Yeah, so when I talked to Tucker Dordovic about it I think it was after the Virginia game, him and I talked, and he said if they played Army the second week of the year versus the first week, they would have won by a lot. Okay. He said, and I've heard it from a lot of alums that I talked to, former Syracuse players, you never want to play Army the first game because Army comes in, they're gonna possess the ball, all shot clock. They're gonna take it down to 15 seconds. So you have to score every possession on offense, or else you're not beating that team because they're just so good offensively. And to be fair, they aren't the Army of old where they had nobodies that trotted out against Syracuse. These are guys that are getting highly recruited now that choose to go to Army.
Yep.
Yeah. So, well, that's interesting. All right. Before we do predictions. Score predictions. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But you have some buy and sells.
I do.
Holding the holds today. All right.
So buy or sell, John Desco coaches longer than Jim Boeheim.
Sell. Nobody will ever coach as long as Jim Boeheim.
Yeah, I'm going to sell as well.
I don't know I think Coach Boeheim may just outlive us all.
How many years is he ahead of him?
Oh gosh,
that I don't know off the top of my head.
When did Desco start? Was it it's pushing 20 years, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking a quarter century, probably more.
And with those fire Desco tweets, I don't know.
Yeah, but that's so typical. I mean, I don't know if I buy into any of that. I do kind of get it. I mean, and I'm just
the cross is to his point. The cross has grown so much.
Yes. I mean, Duke was a nobody. What was it remember when we faced him in the championship game or something? Or
where's Cornell?
What was it? The Final Four of the championship game that we played them, Duke.
What's that?
There was a bunch of years back. I can't remember exactly how many years ago, but we played Duke in the playoffs. Was it the championship game? or was
I think
it?
that was a semifinal.
Okay,
But
all right. But they
You
weren't.
know,
They came on and then they stayed hot. I mean, Duke is a team that wasn't always Duke lacrosse. I mean,
Because
you didn't think
lacrosse
about
got
that.
hot.
Yeah,
you
I
look
know.
at when he was talking about way back in the day when there's like 5-6 teams, some of those teams now, I mean, have not gotten better with the times, have gotten way, way worse than what Syracuse has. Because I remember
you had schools like Brown, Princeton. I mean, you can name off all. I mean,
Cornell.
We can go. Cornell is off and on though, because if the Ivy League has a season this year, Cornell is in the tournament.
Oh,
Okay.
that's right.
Yeah,
So that's
they
part
didn't
of
play.
that. And maybe Syracuse doesn't make it because the Ivy League is in. We don't know that. That's all,
Well,
I'm all
with a Desco. I mean, he leaves. That's got to hurt recruiting too a little bit, does it not? I mean, who fills those shoes?
I have a name,
Okay.
and it's a former Syracuse player, and this is a guy that the name that's been repeated to me.
Powell.
John Galloway.
Oh, okay.
That's a former goalie, right?
Former goalie, coaches right now at Jacksonville down in Florida.
Okay.
Is the head coach at Jacksonville. That is the name that people want. If Desco gets fired / resigns, whatever you want to call it, that is the name that people want. He's the guy that players can resonate to. Look, the Powells are great, right? But let's take Duke, for example. They have a guy that on their staff that played pros. Look, the Syracuse staff is old. I hate to say it that way, but nobody knows who they are. So John Desco played lacrosse, right? Nobody can find his film. Pat March played lacrosse, right? That's not a bad way, but it
it's
is
just funny
because the recruits now are watching YouTube, right?
Right.
So they see John Galloway's pro highlights from the other day. That's perfect for him. That's a recruiting in itself, because if I'm a goalie, like a Drake Porter, who knows he's good enough to play lacrosse, I can go to that school where that pro goalie is, and he's going to get me into the pros. I mean, look, it's turned into like college football has. The guys want to get into pro lacrosse. It's growing. They don't just want to play 4 years.
Yeah. So, well, fair enough. I mean, I get it. Plus,
Yeah, John Hopkins is the other school I was thinking of too. They used to be.
John Hopkins
that-
was big time
yeah.
too. Yeah.
It was like John Hopkins.
Rutgers was good too
Syracuse,
back when I was a
Princeton.
kid.
Yeah.
So, which was quite some time ago. All right. Do you have anything else for us, Dan?
No, that's the only one I could think of
Okay.
off the top of my head. I knew where you guys would go with that, because I know the stigma that Jim Boeheim's going to coach forever. But look, we said that about Desco too, and the heat started to turn up. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, it is. It'll be interesting to see what
What's
happens.
interesting too is, I mean, with Syracuse, it's a situation where the way that the game's being played, and just the newer age kids, it's a little bit different to coach. With the lacrosse, you have to deal with that, but plus the popularity boost of all these other schools taking this on. So, I mean, that's got to be so hard.
I will tell you that I've tried to say that, and the response I've gotten is that's no excuse. Because,
of course.
I mean, yes, it's true, but people look at Final Fours. So if you're going to Syracuse, you're going for the Final Four. Everybody knows when the championship was won. Everybody knows when the last Final Four was. I had a parent that reached out to me. I won't name him, for a player on the current team who said he wanted his son to go to Carolina, and he chose Syracuse. So because his son wants to win, Syracuse was his dream school. So that's great. But if he was on Carolina, he'd be obviously the number one team. So
Right. Yeah, it happens. But Syracuse has got that. I mean, they both got history. So, but just with the sport growing, it's crazy to me.
I mean,
So,
it's growing to the point where down here it's even getting big. And I'm in Virginia Beach, Dan, and back home, obviously lacrosse was huge. And you get here, and when we first started in it, when my son first started in it a few years ago, it wasn't as big as it is now. It's still not huge, but I mean, it's getting to the south. And once it spreads to the south, I mean, look out. It's going to be huge. It's gonna be. It's just been taken.
I mean, it's already spread to the south. It's just not as big as it's gonna be eventually.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing about Georgetown. I mean, now they can recruit down south. Before they could go, you had your pick of Central New York kids, and now it's everywhere. It's obviously spread out west. It's going to California at some point. The California schools are going to jump in on this, but
where we live, there is if you're in high school, so it's all clubs, unless you're in a private school, and the private schools have their teams, but it's all clubs, and they're fantastic. And my son's been playing on the junior varsity team. They practice together. He's only in 8th grade, so he can't play, but he's getting to meet the coach. This is his second year getting to practice with them and just watch these, play with these kids that are 2-3 times his size and get beat up a little bit. And it's good for him. I mean, he goes into high school next year. I mean, he's going to know these kids. He's going to know the coach. And I mean, it's so exciting to watch. It's such a great game to watch. And
lacrosse is going to be one of the biggest sports that actually gets the most out of this whole CTE and football dangerous and not as many kids playing these, football as much. I think that's where you're going to see the growth in that. We're just in the beginning of that.
So I'll ask you guys to that point, kind of, if you're Syracuse and you want to get people in the dome, right? We've seen the crowds of 10,000. I've been there when it's 5,000. How do you get more people in the dome? Because I mean, obviously here in Central New York, it's huge. I think
it's because our other teams are so big. The basketball team and the football team are so big that I don't know. It just goes under the radar. I mean, you've had a women's basketball team that's been pretty good for the past few years. They can barely get people in there too.
And I just think sometimes you need the interest to grow in the sport and the sport to grow first before the actual fans follow, so to speak, Because, if it's important and ESPN might be there, I'm going to show up, right? But who knows as far as, everybody doesn't look at that as the same way. So like I said, lacrosse is getting bigger and bigger. And I get where you're coming from because being Syracuse, it's been a Syracuse school. And it almost seems like the popularity in Syracuse has kind of gone down a little bit as far as fandom and stuff like that. So
we've talked about this with the football program, and I mean the football program just recently started selling tickets again. After the last Eric Dungy's last year, and it's a what have you done for me lately? The Syracuse fans are a little finicky. And when you're out of just a little, when you're out of the Final Four in lacrosse, and you're so spoiled with lacrosse with 11 championships, and you're not in the Final Four for going on our 8th year if they don't make it, then they lose interest. That's it. I mean, it's as simple as that, in my opinion.
And then start calling for the coach's head.
Yeah, fire the coach. I'm not coming to a game until you fire the coach.
People that have never watched lacrosse. Let's just say that honestly. I hate to say it that way to call out people like that, but I saw a bunch of Fire Desco tweets from him. I can tell you the people that have never watched a game. That's all I'm going to say.
And I'll be honest, since we started doing this show, we've just finishing up 5 years, and Joe and I can't speak for Joe, but I would watch games here and there, willy-nilly. But since I really started doing this show and stuff, it's when I really started watching games and paying attention. And the past probably 3 years. I mean, because last year was only 4 games, so whatever. But
and let's be honest, we probably don't talk about it enough.
We don't talk about it enough. We don't, but because we're so limited with our time anyway, I mean, we could talk Syracuse lacrosse, Syracuse basketball, Syracuse football, Syracuse women's basketball. I mean, we'd have to make a living out of it.
Women's lacrosse got a 3 seed in the bye.
Yeah, that's right.
And Lemoyne's women got
snubbed.
But nobody hears about that, though. That's the other thing. So nobody outside Syracuse hears about that. Unless you're a Syracuse fan, you don't know that the women even made the tournament, because in the local Syracuse groups, obviously Mike McAllister has posted about it. Other people have posted about it, but that's the only way you hear about it. I think that's part of the problem, though. There's not enough coverage of lacrosse in general. I've talked to former SU players about that. How do we grow it? And the number one answer is coverage.
I mean, it's a good question.
That's what they've told me.
It's a good question, Dan, and I think it's a multitude of things. Just like with anything, coverage is going to help. But so will being, an exciting team, a good team, obviously. I mean, that's huge, right? You're always going to get people in there for a basketball game. And I think that's another thing that really kind of takes away from the other stuff is our men's basketball team, to be honest with you. I don't ever remember a year where you couldn't get people in the dome for a basketball game. Now them being loud is a different thing. You get 20,000 people in there and they're all sitting on their hands. I've seen that, but at least there's, 15, 20,000 people in there. So on a Tuesday.
Yeah, we know what, I mean, the limited amount of people that listen to us, I think we should do our part, Sean. We got to do better.
We got to have Dan on more. Dan, I mean, this is the conversation that people tune in for, bro. I mean, it's fun to talk about this, that, and the other, but it is good. I mean, we're limited. I mean, Syracuse is a small market for podcasts, Dan. Obviously, if you do a podcast, you kind of get the feel for that. It's just a small market for coverage because you got a lot of people doing a lot of things in a small space. But Joe's right. I mean, we do got to do our due diligence in some of the coverage and things like that. But we got Dan. Dan's doing that. So we got to have Dan. We just got to have Dan on. That's what we got to do. Let him do the work. Bring him on here. He's got his pod. He could come give us a little tasty morsel, and we could send everybody over to his pod. That's how you do it.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
I probably will have, so when this gets released, I probably am having, hopefully I'm working out the details right now. There's a guy that's called 3 Georgetown games in the past 2 weeks, and him and I are going to do a detailed scouting report on Georgetown. So that's a little teaser for everybody listening. We're just working out of time right now. So
that's good. I'll be interested in that. And obviously hit us up, tag us on Twitter and that. By the way, I don't always get to my Twitter tags in time because I don't go on there much. So Dan, if you do it, text me or DM me or something where I get a notification and let me know, and I'll help you get that out there. So predictions. Do we want to do predictions, gentlemen?
Sure.
Dan, if it's going to give anything away from anything, then we don't have to.
No, we can go with it. That's fine.
Okay.
I'm sure my prediction will be way off base, so let's do it.
Okay, I'm sure mine will be too. So that's why we're going to start with Joe.
Hey!
Joe. So
we keep it nice, simple, quick. 16-13 Syracuse.
16-13 Syracuse. Okay. Hold on. I'm going to write these down. Because we're going to have Dan back too. Especially if they make it to the Final Four, Dan, you're coming back, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So I'm not going to wimp out. I'm going to let Dan go last. He's the most knowledgeable one here. I want to see how horrible we are. So this game worries me. After Dan told me yesterday Georgetown had a lacrosse team, and I said, whoa, really? Let me go check them out. And I'm like, oh, crap. They're actually pretty good. They're way better than their basketball team, which sucks and always has sucked. But they do worry me a little bit. But I hate Georgetown so much. I would never pick Georgetown in a prediction. I don't care if I'm wrong or not. So I'm going to go 18-16 Syracuse. Wait, no, hold on. I'm retracting that. 15-12 Syracuse.
I'm around that same number. I think we're going to see a better Syracuse team than we've seen all season, to be honest. Like I said before, the Scanlon stuff is behind them, in my opinion. I mean,
good riddance.
We haven't talked the circle that I'm in hasn't talked about it all week, if that's any indication. So I'm going to go Syracuse 16, Georgetown 13. I think the Tucker Dornbeck gets the game leader for Syracuse at 14-13, and they close it out after that. I'll even give you a top scorer and Tucker.
Okay. Real quick, Owen Hiltz. How awesome is that kid?
He's going to hopefully it's the gut reaction, obviously, right? He's one of the better freshmen Syracuse has ever had. I mean, obviously his recruiting numbers speak volumes, but hopefully he never wears 22. I say that with a grain of salt because I don't want to jinx it because I feel like the jinx on that, but that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day.
We didn't even get into that, which is another abomination. But yeah, I hear you.
He's going to be a stud on this offense for the next few years. Like, he's going to become what Scanlon was, I guess is the easiest way to say it. Like,
yeah.
If I'm comparing him to anybody, that's probably who I'd compare him to, like the Stephen Keoghs a few years ago, Cody Jamieson. He's a stud candidate. Cody's stud Canada attackman. Like, he just puts numbers up. He knows, and this is the thing with Canada players. And I don't know if a lot of people realize this. They play box in the winter. So these are guys that know how to do everything. They could score from every angle, you know.
Yeah. And some of his goals have been ridiculous. So.
He's impressive, man. He's impressive.
Well, I mean, that's what you learn in box is how to make it happen in small spaces. So really fast. And he does it.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, thank you for coming on, dude. We really appreciate it. I had a good time, and none of it was scripted. We just kind of wung it, and it worked out great. I can't wait to have you back. I look forward to that. And obviously, if you need anything from us, you hit us up. You can follow Dan and his podcast at Cuse 1987 at Cuse 1987, right? Or at Cuse Dan 1987.
Cuse 1987 is the personal.
Okay, is the personal, and then at SU Lax Pod. That is, you can follow him there for all of his content that he puts out over the pod waves. And I guess that's gonna do it for us, gentlemen. Thanks to oh boy, I forget. Take Line Podcast, Locker Room app, Bet Online, and Kansas City Steaks. Thank you to all of you for hanging out with us. We appreciate it so much. For Joe and Dan, I'm Sean. We're out.
Peace.